There she is inside the courtroom today. One of the most bizarre defendants you're ever going to come across. Her name is Taylor Schabusiness, if that's actually her name. Charged with a gruesome murder involving the alleged sexual assault of a corpse, the dismemberment of her victim, a head in a bucket. She's already attacked her defense attorney at another hearing. She has a new attorney now. Anyway, today her trial began. Opening statements. Here's the prosecution and a little bit of the defense.
In the early morning of February 22nd of 2022, the defendant strangled her friend Shad Thyrion to death using a dog collar. That after he was dead, engaged in sexual acts with him, with his body, subsequently dismembered him using kitchen knives found in the home. Right next to the stairs, there's a 5-gallon bucket that you'd get at a home center, and she lifts a towel that's covering the bucket. It's like a beach towel. And unfortunately, sees essentially a mother's worst nightmare, that her son's head is in the bucket. You'll hear the defendant describe that what apparently begins as a somewhat sexual encounter escalates to a dog collar being placed around Shad's neck. She's pulling harder, just hoping that he eventually passes, and it takes a significant amount of time. It takes several minutes, so you'll hear her say. After that, after Shad's deceased, she describes what she then does with his body, again, engaging in sexual acts, ultimately dismembering him quite significantly. She reports that afterwards, that law enforcement would have fun finding all the body parts that are located throughout the basement, told law enforcement where to find certain body parts. Like I said, it wasn't obvious to law enforcement who initially respond to that basement what happened. It's information being provided by the defendant that later is corroborated by law enforcement. Ultimately, the case comes down to choices and responsibility. The defendant made a series of choices February 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. Choices to use methamphetamine, choices to kill her friend, Shad, choices to then utterly degrade him after the fact.
Now, in this case, the state of Wisconsin, through the Brown County District Attorney's Office, has the complete burden of proof. The state must prove to all of you jurors, beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element of the crimes charged beyond a reasonable doubt. The United States Constitution presumes that every person who is accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. And in this case, Taylor Schabusiness is presumed to be innocent. You have to assess the credibility of each and every witness. You have to take all of that into consideration in this matter. I'd ask that you, when you're considering all of the evidence, don't jump to conclusions, don't rush to judgment. Please keep an open mind. Listen to all the facts, listen to what every witness has to say carefully and weigh what they have to say. And remember, there's always two sides to every story.
Yeah, my translation of the defense open. We got nothing, folks. We got nothing. I think that's the way it's going to play out, but you never know. I've been fooled before. So, for more on day one in this trial, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae here in person, in studio. Unbelievable. Just the expressions, everything else going on with Taylor Schabusiness today.
Oh, yeah.
We also heard a 911 call.
We did. Today was jam-packed. We heard a lot of important voices. We saw some disturbing images as far as this jury there inside of the courtroom. But what they heard through that 911 call, a mother's worst nightmare, what she found there in the basement of her own home. But this 911 call started with her boyfriend, Stephen Hendricks, making the phone call to police. And he's someone who says he just really can't even admit or stomach what is going on. And then we heard Tara Pakanik, the mother, get on at the end of the call, but take a listen.
Tell me what's happening there again.
I have no clue what's happening. My girl swears that she's found her
her son in the basement.
Did you go down there?
In a bucket. I went down, I can't tell what the part of my language, I'm kind of a little freaked out.
Has he been missing, or?
No, he was here yesterday with some chick, and then now all of a sudden nobody's here.
Can you tell me what's going on?
Pretty positive my son's head is in a bucket, but I know I'm not getting my basement.
What makes you think that?
Because I looked in the bucket.
And what did you see?
Exactly what I told you.
This operator, Vinny, he said a couple of times, do you think it could be fake? Are you sure this is what you see? And you heard there, Tara Pakanek, who you saw was the custodian of records. She was entering that, they were entering that evidence through her.
That is tough. That's a tough call. And the shock that both of them must have been going through, having seen a bucket with the head in it. Okay, police respond. There is body cam video.
Police say that this was something they had never investigated before, unlike anything they'd investigated before. There were two officers in particular who responded to that home. They went downstairs to the basement where the mother directed them, and take a listen to how they reacted to seeing the same thing that they'd been told about on that 911 call.
Where's that? Go right there. Look right, there's a bucket with a towel on it.
Just keep an eye out. Let's do it. Dude, it is. That's real, right? That's real love.
I think I'm still in awe of just how calm everyone is. Just the idea of what they're seeing. It's like it's taking everyone by such surprise. They don't know what to say. It is literally a head in a bucket. And even how the boyfriend and the mother sounded on the call, and now these officers, just, this is really what I'm looking at.
What did the medical examiner have to say today?
Oh, this was some hard stuff. You notice in that room, there's no blood anywhere. The police can't really tell what happened. This is just a head by itself. So the medical examiner kind of gives us an idea, or the deputy who was there, the medical examiner deputy who went to the scene, actually identified some things when this was happening, helping police as they were investigating this. They didn't find everything in that bedroom, but they did find more of the victim in this case, Shad Thyrion.
The next container we moved to was a blue tote bin that was on the floor at the head of the bed, and it had a bunch of laundry, or I can't remember if it's clothing or blankets, but something on top of it, and there seemed to be a small amount of blood on the outside of the tote bin, and we slowly removed what was on top until we could see what was in the tote bin. In the tote bin, we found a substantial amount of blood at the bottom of the tote bin. We also found a torso of a human male.
In addition to the 4 containers, were there any other containers located in the room that had a substantial amount of human remains?
There was no other remains found in the basement.
None found in the basement, but they went on to find those other body parts, legs, arms, and other places. And this is so important for this stage. We're in the guilt phase of this case. The insanity part, the mental disease or defect part, the jury is not weighing that in this phase. They're going to give a verdict on guilt or innocence. If they find her guilty, they'll then move to her plea of not guilty by reason of insanity and determine was she suffering from a disease, mental disease or defect, and make a decision there.
We heard her in the 911 call, but she also testified, the victim's mom.
She did. She did not want her face to be shown, so you hear her voice, and here she is on cross-examination. Even though we don't see her, we see Taylor Schabusiness, and watch her facial expression while the mother of her dead boyfriend is talking.
In February of 2022, your son, Shad Thyrion, was living with his father, Michael Thyrion?
Correct.
And your son would come to your house to eat sometimes, correct?
To eat, hang out with his sister, me.
Do some laundry, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And would you have to tell him to take a shower?
I don't know that I had to tell him, but he'd shower there.
Were you worried that he didn't always take care of himself?
Yes.
I mean, she looks a little confused there that her attorney is asking some important questions that could help her in this case.
Bizarre, completely bizarre, incredibly tragic, gruesome, everything else. Julie Janae, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Al Wunsch, Darnell Crossland, Jennifer Brandt. This is a tough one, Darnell. It's a insanity defense because all the evidence came from her and then was corroborated by police through the investigation. What do you think, first of all, of the way she presents herself inside that courtroom?
Well, like the police said, it's real, dog. You know, this is real mental health, and it appears that way. I forget the guy's name in Waukesha, but you know, even he had some lucid intervals where he would come around and be intelligent or whatever. But this lady is just, she's numb. She's just out there. Just wake me up when it's all over. So I don't think she's coming across sane at all. So she's already setting up that defense quite well.
Jennifer Brandt, your thoughts about Taylor Schabusiness?
I don't think she looks insane. I think she looks very calculating. I mean, you see her smirk there, just some of her facial expressions. I think my observation is that she seems to know what's going on, and she just seems evil, looks evil, and you hear the crime, you hear what happened. It's scary. She doesn't strike me as being insane at all. She strikes me as being cold and calculating and gruesome.
Now, Al, what impact will her appearance inside the courtroom have on what her state of mind was at the time of the murders? How do you think the jury balances what they're going to hear from experts in the second half of this trial versus what they actually see firsthand inside the courtroom?
Oh, that's interesting, Vin, because, I mean, she does, like, give off sort of that, like, Children of the Corn / Omen 2 look that is just kind of frightening. I don't think the jury's going to be overly sympathetic to her. I don't think she's going to come across well. As to the mental aspect of this case or the insanity, I mean, the act really does kind of speak for itself, as we say, res ipsa loquitur. I mean, who does what she did, and with the calculated way she did it and the conversation she had about it, it's definitely disturbing. And I think that will lend credence to, like Darnell said, her mental state argument. But from the standpoint of the jury looking at her, it's just chill. It's like staring, you know, like the line from Jaws is like, you know, the dead eyes, dark eyes, a doll's eyes. I mean, it's just very scary looking at that. And then hearing what she did, I mean, that is just the most horrendous thing. You know, they said that every mother's worst nightmare. I don't think any mother has ever thought that could possibly happen.
No.
Let alone it be her worst nightmare. I don't think they could ever even conceive something like that horrible. So that's why I think there was calmness to it, because the shock value was just something like out of a horror movie.
Beyond anything we've seen, really, in the history of court TV for a mom to come across that in her basement. Okay, stay where you are. Up next.